Hi guys, welcome back to Guru Beauty. Here is a video that's been a while in the making. I have attempted to do a review of all of the MAC foundations that I own and currently wear. The foundations that I'm sharing with you today are the Matchmaster foundation, the Studio Fix Fluid foundation, the MAC Face and Body foundation, Pro Longwear, and Studio Sculpt. So I'll just go through one by one. I do want to show you how it looks putting on that foundation so that you can see immediately the coverage and the slip and any comments that I have in that application part, as well as then at the end of the day how it looks, some of them after touch-up, some of them without any touch-up, and then what my feelings are at the end of the day towards how that foundation wore. Before we get started, I do also want to mention what my complexion is like. I think that's such an important part of discussing any kind of foundation. So I have a combination to oily skin. I usually apply my makeup probably about 7 AM, and if I don't have breakthrough by 11 or 12, I would be extremely impressed with the product that I'm using. I did test all of these products using Prep and Prime SPF 50 underneath, which I have found to be an excellent oil control primer that does help the makeup stay on. So that's worth noting, that when I talk about these foundations, how they apply as well as how long they last, that's based on wearing a good oil control primer underneath. So without any further ado, here we go. We are giving the sheerest MAC foundation that I have in my collection a go. It's the MAC Face and Body foundation, and this is one that's meant to sort of look very, very natural. It does give a certain sheen to the skin, but it certainly lets everything that you've got shine through. It's not much of a cover-up, but apparently a lot of makeup artists use this professionally on photo shoots just to give models skin, obviously those who already have a beautiful, nice, flawless complexion, just have a nice sheen. And it is waterproof. It is best applied with fingers, and I have this in the colour C4 is what I was matched to. I do also have the white MAC Face and Body. This is just called white, so I'm going to actually just mix those. I think C4 might be a little bit dark, so what I'm going to do, first of all, I recommend keeping this in the fridge too if you can. It does help to preserve the life of the Face and Body foundation, which has a relatively short shelf life. So shake it up really well. What I like about this as well is that it is 4 fluid ounces in one bottle, so really good value of all the foundations. I'm just going to, you see it's got a little squeezer tube. I'm just going to squeeze some of that, quite a bit, onto my hand. There you go. And you can just see how, runny it is. It's definitely a fluid. It's, there's not much thickness to it at all compared with other foundations. And just putting a little bit of the white next to it as well, just to, mix in that colour. So I think the best way that it's recommended to apply this stuff is using your fingers. So I'm just going to basically, you can see that white is going to town. I'm just going to mix this in with my fingers. Just doing another layer over. I first heard about this foundation from Lollipop 26 when she was making beauty videos. So quite a while ago. And she loved this foundation. She really gave it a, glowing review. And I must say, if you're not trying to cover too much, and, I'm at a stage where I believe that my acne is being relatively well controlled. And, a lot of people comment on the dark spots that I have on my face, but I'm really not too conscious of having to cover that. I don't mind letting freckles and dark spots shine through. That's not one of my biggest skin concerns. So this is actually a nice foundation. I do like it. I would agree with Lollipop 26's comments. It still does give you some coverage, and it's definitely dewy. So if you don't want dewiness to your face, you could powder this down. So this is buildable. Hopefully you've been able to see as I've been applying it that, what I started with, usually you can sort of find the freckles and pigmentation that I mostly want to try and even out. I think that's pretty much it. So I think it's showing up. You can obviously see the dew on that. It's definitely got more of a sheen, more of a dew than any of the other foundations. So a lot more shine, but still I'd say you can definitely build that to a medium coverage. It certainly starts at a light coverage, the less that you use, but you can build that up to a medium. And it's just lovely. It really, you know, looks quite natural. You can see, you know, the pores, you can see the coloring, but if you're after just something that's a little bit of coverage with a nice natural sort of dewy finish, this is a good one. And obviously being waterproof, you could wear it to the pool, to the beach, you know, anywhere. So I'll be back in about 10-20 minutes just to show you how it's morphed. Okay, so this is about 10-15 minutes later. Haven't applied any powder. I have applied some sort of illuminator under my eyes, so don't take that shine into consideration, but you can see around my face that there is definitely still some dew there with the MAC Face and Body Foundation, and I think that's pretty much how it will stay for the rest of the day. As a sheer coverage, I think it will wear pretty well throughout the day, but I will be back to let you know how it did wear. Okay guys, so it's now about 12 hours since I applied my MAC Face and Body Foundation. I mixed the C4 with the white, and while I was applying it I was referring to it as a waterproof makeup, but I do stand corrected. It is actually a water resistant makeup. In 12 hours I did not touch it up, and there's definitely no caking or anything like that. There's definitely no settling into pores, settling into fine lines. It's such a sheer coverage to start with, and I did not actually set this with a powder today. I just really like the dew that it gives. I don't think that it makes me look too oily with my oily combination skin, and I still think that 12 hours on, it's still giving me an even tone over my natural skin. So I think it definitely still gives me a nicer appearance than just my natural naked bare skin on my face. So this is definitely the MAC foundation for you if you don't really have much to cover. You just want to really slightly even out the tone of your skin and have a really natural finish, just to make it look like you're not wearing makeup at all, but just ever so slightly even out the tone of your skin. This is the makeup for you. You could definitely mix that in with other foundations as well to sheer it out. It would be a great mixing foundation for thicker foundations as well. Okay, so that first foundation is the MAC Face and Body, and you saw how I put it on and how it wore throughout the day. While it is a light foundation, it really does wear pretty well. I like that it's water resistant. I like that you can just sort of pop it on with your fingers. It's really easy, really nice natural coverage, and I would wear this. This is one that I would take on a vacation with me. If I was going to the beach or something and just wanted a little bit more coverage, I would definitely put that over obviously an SPF primer, but this is a great one just for the day when you don't want a whole lot of coverage, just a little bit, you know, of evening out and a really natural finish. It definitely can be powdered if you want more of a matte effect, but I really like on the weekend just using this foundation, as well as on the holidays, just the sheen that it gives. It's really pretty, it photographs really nicely, but you don't want to be using this if you do like a heavier coverage foundation. It's definitely not the one for you if you've got, you know, a lot to cover. Overall, I really like this foundation. This is one that's more recommended for the more dry skin tones. Recently, the Pixie Woo girls did a MAC foundation video, and I think the both of them have skin that tends to the dry side, and it's really noticeable that most of the MAC liquid foundations that are on the market are definitely geared towards the more oilier complexions, which is where I'm in luck. That is what I have. I have a combination to oily complexion, and a lot of things don't work for that, but it's really nice that MAC does cater in quite a few variations of foundations towards that kind of complexion. Today I am going to be showing you a quick application and just a really brief discussion of the MAC Studio Fix Fluid Foundation. It is SPF 15, which I really like. Comes in a 1 ounce bottle. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't like about it is that it doesn't come with a pump. I believe that you can buy a pump from MAC for this bottle just to make it a little bit easier to use. You do often hear this foundation compared quite a bit with the Revlon Color Stay. This is the first time I'm using this foundation. What I would expect would be a full coverage foundation that dries down to a pretty matte finish and that lasts pretty well all day. So we'll see how we go with that. So I have applied my regular skincare and primer, and I'm just going to use the bottle to dispense a bit on my hand. It is quite it's not a, really liquidy foundation. Just putting a bit on my hand there. And I have a pre-dampened Beauty Blender sponge. Just getting a bit there on my sponge, and I'm just going to dot the product around my face. I will say the shade that I'm using, I've been matched at a counter, depending on the foundation, NC30. This is actually an NW25, so I expect that it'll be a little bit pinker than the NC30, which often comes out looking quite yellowy orange. One of the things that I hate is when a foundation comes out too pink. I really don't like that at all. So if it's anything like the Revlon Colour Stay, you probably need to work, moderately fast, blending this in so that it doesn't set, in the wrong way. Just using the Beauty Blender in a rolling motion. Okay, so this is one layer of the MAC Studio Fix Fluid. I would say that it is a medium to full coverage, as it definitely dries down to a matte consistency very fast. I'll just add a little bit more just to see how much it covers, any other dark pigmentation that I have on my cheeks. Okay, so I've just applied another sort of slight layer around here just to see how much coverage I could get from this foundation. And I will say that I do really like the coverage. If you're someone who has darker pigmentation or acne or anything that requires a more full coverage foundation, I really like the way this goes on as a first impression. And while it is a lot sort of more matte, it's not a mask-like matte. I mean, you can still see my skin still looks like skin. I have not powdered it. I'm going to apply the rest of my makeup and I'll be back before I actually set that with any powder. Okay, so this is about half an hour on after I've applied the MAC Studio Fix Fluid Foundation, and it really hasn't changed that much. It hasn't further mattified from application. I am quite warm, so you can see a little bit of dewiness, but I think that's more from the heat than the makeup. I would powder that just to set it, but certainly wouldn't want to further mattify that too much. So this is now 10 hours after I've applied the MAC Studio Fix Fluid Foundation, and I am so impressed. I have not touched up this makeup. Usually I would touch up halfway through the day, but we're here on summer holidays and it's been about a 35 degrees Celsius day today, about 100 degrees Fahrenheit roughly. I've been, indoors, outdoors, swimming with the kids, didn't get my face wet obviously for video purposes, but usually I would touch up halfway through the day, not on summer holidays. So this is completely untouched. All I've added to my face since I applied the foundation this morning over 10 hours ago is lipstick for the video and just a tiny bit of cream blush, but I have not touched the skin. No extra concealer, no extra powder, nothing. I did fix the MAC Studio Fix Fluid Foundation today with the MAC Studio Fix powder, which definitely gives more coverage and can be used as a foundation alone, so that may have something to do with how well it wore. I will definitely know more as I use it a few more times, but the finish is just gorgeous. I've still got that same slight glow. My skin looks like skin. My pores certainly are not accentuated. I perspired today. I've sweated today. I haven't touched up, and usually where I'll get oily is around sort of my eyebrows. I mean, everywhere really. I can get oily down here, but I really notice where makeup starts to break down from oil first is around my nose area, and I don't think that's happened with this makeup today. So I love the full coverage that it gives, and you know, my favorite all-time foundation is the Estee Lauder Double Wear for how beautifully it applies, how gorgeous my skin looks. It doesn't look like a mask, but it covers what you want to cover in a buildable way. I love the way it looks throughout the day, and I love the longevity of it. This foundation from MAC, the Studio Fix Fluid, has all those same properties. So all the things that I love about Estee Lauder Double Wear, MAC Studio Fix Fluid seems to have. Also, it could break you out. That's definitely something that you hear quite a bit from people about MAC foundations. So yeah, stay posted, but it's probably obvious that it's hard to contain my excitement about this foundation and my experiences today. Okay, so now discussing the Studio Fix Fluid Foundation, I think that the match that was made for me at the MAC counter of NW25 was just off a little bit. I find this is just a little bit too pink for me in NW25, and I would steer more towards the NC30, I think, for me, or even NC25. So a few comments about the Studio Fix Fluid. It does have SPF 15, which is fantastic. It does definitely have medium buildable coverage, so you can definitely build this coverage right up if you do have, you know, coverage needs. It is a thicker foundation. It does have SPF 15, so a great daytime makeup. I find that this one just photographs so beautifully. I think it must be the silicone in the formulation that just really helps minimize the pores, and it just reflects the light in a beautiful way for photos. Whenever I'm looking at a photograph of myself wearing this foundation, I have to go back and check what foundation was I wearing in it. I just think this is a beautifully photographed foundation. It's not completely matte, so it is for people who like, you know, to go more on the matte side. It's not completely matte, but it is quite a matte finish. And I do find that with that buildability though, it can cake if you do layer it too much. It definitely can look like foundation on your skin. So not one for those who really like a really natural finish that looks like skin. This is one for those who do want that extra coverage that you can build up. And one more thing to note is that the pump doesn't come with a bottle. MAC in Australia sells these pumps that you just attach on. I think it's for $8 each. That's one thing about that foundation, is that you do have to buy a pump. Otherwise it's a tippy type bottle, much like the Revlon Color Stay. Okay, so today I am showing you the MAC Matchmaster foundation. The Matchmaster is SPF 15. It has new foundation technology that uses translucent pigments that adjust to your personalized finish, influenced by the subtleties of your own skin's undertone, according to MAC. It has a moisturizing demi-matte finish, and it's got medium buildable coverage with line reducing soft focus powders. I have used a sample of this product, which did lead me to buy the full size. I was really impressed with it. In my mind, how this foundation sits is between sort of like a let's see, between like the Studio Fix Fluid and the Pro Longwear. It certainly does have that matte that you would want if you're using like the sort of Pro Longwear type products and the Studio Fix, but also it does last a long time as well, like the Pro Longwear. So I'll just show you how it goes on. And one of the things that I've really been enjoying using this product with is my MAC Strobe Liquid Lotion. So I'll just put that on first. I'm just going to use just a basic foundation brush for the strobe. I'm just sort of going to pop it on here where I just want a little bit of, you know, luminosity to show through. And I will say as well that I've really been enjoying this with a lot of foundations lately, the Strobe Liquid Lotion. So the shade that I've been matched to with the Matchmaster is the shade 3.0. It is the fourth lightest shade of the range. I think there's maybe about 12 different shades available. This shade certainly goes towards the orangey yellowy side. It does come with a handy pump, just like the Pro Longwear that it does lock for travel. Just show you how much I get from one pump. That's what you get from one pump. I'm just going to put 2 pumps on. Just 2 pumps is going to be plenty to cover my face. Now I'm going to use a brush. This is like a MAC 187. This is the Laura Mercier finishing brush. Very similar, sort of, you know, the duo fiber. And I'm just tapped it in. You can see that the foundation is just in the tips of that brush. I'm just going to tap it on my face first of all. And then just in circular motions, just start blending it in. with one layer you can still see some pigmentation coming through, you can still see my freckles and sunspots and all those dark spots, but it is buildable. What buildable means obviously is that it's not going to, you know, you can layer it without it getting too cakey. If you want extra coverage, you can layer it. And that certainly is one of the more versatile aspects of a foundation. If it's buildable, you can obviously just do one layer if you want a lighter coverage, but using that same foundation, you can get a heavier coverage by layering it to get extra coverage without it caking up. I'm going to always bring it down my neck and just sort of stipple with the 187 just to get that, no streaks. Okay, so after 2 layers using a duo fiber stippling type brush, I've still got what I would say is a medium coverage of the foundation. You can still certainly see my skin and bits and pieces coming through, and you could still continue to build that if you wanted more coverage. I think this is appropriate for me for daytime. I'm quite happy with that, and then I can always top it with a Mineralize SkinFinish powder or some kind of mineral powder foundation just to get extra coverage if I did want, without adding more of the liquid foundation. You know, if I just wanted that layer to set it. I'm going to apply the rest of my makeup now, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like in a little bit, how it's settled into my skin. So I have finished now putting on my makeup over the Matchmaster foundation. I did actually really lightly powder around the T-zone with the MAC Mineralize SkinFinish in Natural, but it does really dry down to quite a matte. It's very hot, so my dewiness is really due to my highlighter and perspiration right now, but it does actually set down to pretty matte. The description of demi-matte, I would say, is definitely the matte side of matte from my experience with the Matchmaster. We'll see how it wears throughout the day, but one thing I did forget to say as I was applying it is right from the very first time that I used this product, when I brought my little sample pot home from the MAC counter, it is the easiest foundation, I think, of any liquid foundation I've got, MAC or otherwise, to apply. It almost just melts into the skin. And I don't just mean color-wise. Obviously, it's Matchmaster. The color is meant to blend in with your skin. But formulation-wise, it's absolutely effortless. You don't have brush strokes and have to really work it in like you do other foundations. So the Matchmaster, definitely of any foundation and of any of the MAC foundations that I will be comparing it with in this video, it's just easy and fast to apply. That medium coverage really helps it look really quite natural, but still perfect for oily skin tones, in that it does help to keep the oils at bay. It is nice and long lasting, just without that heavy coverage, if you don't want that heavy coverage that you get from the Studio Fix and the Pro Longwear, which is sort of medium buildable too. This is a really good one for you, but effortless and perfect for those applications on really fast mornings where you definitely still want a foundation, but you don't want to be working really hard with it. Hi guys, so it's the end of a long, hot, sweaty day with the Matchmaster foundation, and I have not touched it up at all. It's about 9 hours since I applied it, and I have not blotted, I haven't powdered, I haven't done anything to it at all, and I'm really pleased with the way that it has worn throughout the day. I've still got that same coverage, I would say, that I had when I first applied it, and it's definitely not, you know, a big oil slick either, despite the fact that it was a hot day. I think it was about 35 degrees Celsius, and we spent, you know, the day outside at the playground and running around. So very pleased with the way this foundation stood up. I feel like it's the best of both worlds as far as having a nice buildable coverage that can stay light when you want it light, and that the long lasting benefits of it are excellent. I think as well, just with regards to the appearance of my pores, that's certainly something that I take note of when I am looking at a foundation, and I think that this one is on the positive side as far as, you know, how it shows my pores or doesn't show my pores as much. Really beautiful natural finish here. Matchmaster definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Okay, so that was the Matchmaster foundation. Matchmaster, like Studio Fix, is SPF 15, which is fantastic again for daytime. I initially was a little bit confused about why MAC would have Matchmaster and Pro Longwear out at the same time. So Matchmaster I would recommend as a great sort of daily foundation. It does have a light to medium coverage that is buildable. It does have a lot more sort of emolliency, if that's the word, a lot more slip than the Pro Longwear. So as you do have a little bit more time than the Pro Longwear to work with it, I find that it's moderate on the pores. It doesn't minimize my pores, but it doesn't really exacerbate them as much as the Pro Longwear does. I find that it does last a decent amount of time, as you saw in the video, and it also shows pretty good oil control. So MAC says that this has a demi-matte formula and it's got technology in it that helps diffuse fine lines. I'm not sure about all of that, but it was a good buildable coverage that's magical to apply. That again makes it a perfect foundation for daily use. You just have to think about this one a lot less than any of the other foundations. It just sort of blends on effortlessly, lasts a really decent amount of time, light to medium buildable coverage, so you know you definitely have that flexibility with this foundation. This one would be the one that I would recommend for overall daily use. Today I'm applying MAC's Pro Longwear SPF 10 foundation. It does come in a pump bottle. I used this in the shade NC30. That was colour matched for me at the MAC counter. I'm going to squirt out some on my hand. I think I've done 4 pumps there on my hand. I've got a damp squeezed out beauty blender and I'm just going to dab that Pro Longwear all over my face. And now I'm going to just blend in using the beauty blender. The Pro Longwear is a sort of light, I would say a light to medium coverage that's definitely buildable. It's nice and blendable, but it's definitely got a lightness to it. Okay, and that is one layer of the Pro Longwear. You can see a bit of a glow, but primarily it's really quite matte. I'm just going to squeeze another pump onto my hand of that, dip in my beauty blender, and then just around this area here where I've got some pigmentation, I'm just going to go over that with some more. And then just picked up the other bit from my hand from that one squeeze, and I'll just build it a little bit more on this side. So I think I'm happy right now with the coverage. It gives a nice sort of medium coverage, I would say, that's buildable. It's probably a semi-matte finish and very sort of natural looking, and I'll come back and talk about just how it's sort of set in 10-20 minutes. Okay, so we're about 20 minutes on and this is sort of how it's worn down. I have not applied any powder to the Pro Longwear foundation. It is, yeah, definitely a matte. I would say it's similar to the colour stay as far as, you know, how it dries matte. It doesn't give as much coverage as a Revlon colour stay, but again I do like that it's buildable, so you get to choose obviously how much coverage you have, starting off as a medium. That's nice and versatile, and it's not a sort of matte that gives you a mask like matte. So it's a, yeah, it's a nice sort of natural type matte finish. I'll be back towards the end of the day just to talk about how it's worn throughout the day. Okay, so this is me at the end of the day with the MAC Pro Longwear foundation. I really like that medium coverage that's definitely buildable to something more. I really like that pretty matte coverage. Let's see, it is probably about 9 hours since I applied it. I did touch up once with the Maybelline Dream Matte Powder halfway through the day, but I'm very pleased with that, how it wears throughout the day. If you over powder or if you apply a little bit too much, it could veer onto the cakey side, but overall I think when applied with the damp sort of beauty blender sponge, I'm really pleased with the coverage that I was able to get, as well as how long it wears throughout the day. I mean, 9 hours later and it still looks pretty great with one touch up. So very impressed and would recommend the MAC Pro Longwear. So the Pro Longwear to me is it is similar in a way to the Matchmaster in that it's long lasting. I dare say that it's longer lasting than the Matchmaster, and one of the things to be aware of with the Pro Longwear is that it does have a medium buildable coverage, but I feel like with this one it does sort of really just sit on the skin. It sets really quickly, so you really have to be focused and ready for the job when you put it on. So once you do put it on, you've got really quite a matte foundation that's going to stay a long time. I don't think that this does my pores any favors at all. I would definitely try and blend this in with something like a, you know, strobe liquid lotion or some kind of illuminator if I wanted, you know, a little bit more of a glow. And I did find with this foundation that I really like it, the way that it wears. So it's really quite matte when you first apply it, but then throughout the day, you know, at the 12-hour mark, I actually preferred the way that this foundation looked on my skin than at the time that I applied it, which is not something I could say for probably any other foundation that I've ever used. So just with a bit of time, just for my own skin, you know, oils to mix in with it, then I found that it was a really lovely sheen, and it still looked pretty flawless because of the long lasting ability of the Pro Longwear. I do really like the fact that it does come with its own pump. I really like the fact that it has got significant oil control, and I do really like the way that it stays without fading or smearing or getting patchy at all throughout the day. And one thing to make you aware of as well when you are looking for the Pro Longwear, that the shade range is similar to, you know, a lot of the other foundations like the NC, the NW, but they're not equivalent. So if you're an NC30 in Studio Fix Fluid, for example, that's not going to be the same shade as an NC30 in the Pro Longwear. So do make sure that you do get matched at the counter. This is the perfect foundation for, you know, if you want a fairly matte coverage that's going to last a long time. If you're going to, you know, attend something, or if you're on holiday, or if you're going to be out from morning all the way into night, this would be your best bet for the longest lasting foundation that doesn't start to deteriorate, you know, even 12 hours out. Okay, so this is the MAC Studio Sculpt foundation, and I have been colour matched at the MAC counter with NC30, and I had a long extensive conversation with the lady about, you know, what the best way to apply it would be, and she sort of recommended just dotting it all over the face. And this is a gel formulation foundation, which is a little bit different to, you know, anything that I've ever tried before, but I really like it. Okay, so I've dotted it all over my face, and then I'll be using a 187 type brush to just buff it in. This was how she recommended putting it on. Feels a little bit gritty when you're actually just touching it with your finger. Obviously there's no feeling of grit on my face as I buff it in. NC30 seems a little bit orange for my neck, but I really liked the colour on yesterday. All day it seemed to wear pretty well. It didn't look like it was too dark, I guess, once I'd set with powder and all of that stuff. So it's blending in quite nicely. You could use a Sigma flat top kabuki brush too for that, or really any brush that you like for buffing. Okay, so that's it applied freshly. You can see it's got a bit of a dew to it. That is going to dry down after a while, and that's why I don't powder immediately after applying foundation. Most foundations are going to have some kind of a dew on your face, you know, that's going to dry down, and I don't want to over apply powder. Obviously if it's got a dew, it'll probably take more powder, and you certainly want to reduce the amount of powder that you're using on your face to avoid cakiness. I would say the coverage is definitely a medium coverage. It's definitely covering most of my pigmentation at a reasonable level for me without having to actually do any spot coverage. So I really like that. I'll be back just to show you sort of what it dries down to. Okay, so this is about 20 minutes later. You can see that the foundation, this is the MAC Studio Sculpt. I have not powdered. I have put some concealer on under my eyes, but it still has a bit of a sheen to it, but certainly I don't think it's anything that looks too oily. So I do really like the finish of that. I do really like that decent medium coverage, and I think you could build that to something fuller if you wanted to. And I'll be back at the end of the day. It's the end of the day, and I applied my MAC Studio Sculpt foundation this morning. Let's see, it is about 9 to 10 hours after I applied it. When I applied the Studio Sculpt, I did set it with the Laura Mercier Loose setting powder, the one in translucent today, and I did one touch up about 5 hours later. I hardly even needed it, and I'm very pleased with this foundation. I've got a little bit of cakiness around here, but that would be the large amount of concealer that I put there. I do not think that that's attributable at all to the foundation. I think I still actually have quite a matte look on my face. The coverage was beautiful, the longevity was beautiful. So the Studio Sculpt, like the Studio Fix and the Matchmaster, we're looking at an SPF 15 foundation. As that unique sort of gel formula, it really gives you a lot of time to work it in and work it on. This is beautiful with the strobe liquid lotion or the strobe cream. It's definitely one of the least matte, besides the face and body that I've shown you today. It definitely just goes on beautiful. It has a lot of slip. You have a lot of time to work with it. It's not entirely matte, but do let it settle into your skin before you decide how much powder to put on. And as far as how well it lasts, it doesn't last a really long time. I notice when I wear this foundation that, you know, if I have been touching my face around here, it definitely has sort of worn off around this area. So it's not a long lasting foundation, but the finish is really nice. If you were just going to wear this out for the day and then come right home at the end, you know, without needing it to last into the early evening, I would say this would be a great choice. And then I do also want to recommend the Mineralize SkinFinish Natural. This is a really good one just to set any of those foundations. It does give you a little bit more coverage over whatever foundation that it is covering, just moderately extra coverage, and it does obviously just help to set that makeup without getting too cakey. I'll apply that with a kabuki, just a really light sort of dusting, and I'll just sort of tap it on pretty much in my T-zone if I'm setting makeup. My colour here, just for reference, is the medium plus. Some have even said that they really like wearing the SkinFinish Natural on its own, and obviously as it is a mineralized product, you can actually apply this wet. It's something that I've only done once or twice, and it is quite a natural finish. You can, you know, get your wet brush and wet it down and apply onto your skin. This would be a more natural type finish that, you know, dries down to a pretty matte finish. One last thing also worth noting is that, as with any foundation, it's always a good idea to go to a counter and get matched for the right shade. A foundation, no matter the formulation, is not going to look good on your skin if it's not a good color match, and you can really only do that in person. If you are interested in being a little bit risky, you can go to Temptalia's foundation matrix with it, which I have found to be quite accurate when I've bought other foundations from different ranges. It's a fantastic resource, but nothing beats going to a makeup counter and getting matched. Another point is that one of the biggest complaints about MAC foundations, or really any foundation, is that it breaks people out. So everyone's different. Everyone's going to react differently to each foundation, each product, and each ingredient inside each product. So just bear all of that in mind, and always get a sample wherever you can. If any of these foundations are going to break you out, you'd rather find that out when you're using a little sample pot rather than having spent the money on the whole big bottle and then have it be a big waste. So thank you so much for watching. I'd really love to hear your comments. If you have thoughts and experiences about any of these products, let me know. I'd love to hear what your favorite MAC foundation, or any foundation, is for that matter. And don't forget to tell me why. I love to hear that. Or anything that I may have missed, definitely comment down below. I really appreciate the feedback, the contributions from everyone that comments on the videos, so keep them coming. So thank you so much for watching. I think I'm done. Phew, this video has been a long time in the making, so I'm glad to finally have it up for you guys. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again really soon. Bye.